It started with my left foot. Not pain, not burning, just nothing. A patch of nothing across the top 3 toes that would come and go at first, then started staying longer, then stopped leaving at all. I pressed my fingers into those toes. I could feel the pressure from my hand, but the toes themselves felt like they belonged to someone else, like the signal from that part of my foot was traveling through something dense and slow before it reached me. I am 83 years old. I mentioned it to my doctor at my annual visit. He looked at my feet, tapped the sole with a small instrument, asked if I felt it. I said yes, mostly. He wrote something in the chart. He said, "At your age, some degree of peripheral sensation loss is expected." He said we would keep an eye on it. I left that appointment with nothing to do. I want to tell you what I found out in the months that followed, because what was happening inside the nerve tissue of my left foot was not the inevitable consequence of being 83. It was the consequence of something specific that had been quietly depleting for years, something that the body cannot make on its own, that most people over 65 are not getting enough of from food, and that, in people managing blood sugar, drains even faster than it does in everyone else. The numbness in my toes was a warning, not about age, about a nutrient my nerves had been running short on for a long time before my foot started telling me so. And once I understood what that nutrient was and why it mattered specifically for nerve tissue, I understood something else. The warning had been building for years. I had just not known what to listen for. Before I go further, is the numbness in your toes constant, or does it come and go? One foot or both? Morning or evening or both? Drop it in the comments right now, because the pattern matters, and what you share helps me understand where people actually are when they find this video. Let me explain what is happening inside a nerve when it goes numb. Every peripheral nerve in your body, every wire that runs from your spinal cord down through your legs and into the tips of your toes, is wrapped in a protective coating called myelin. Think of it the way you think of the plastic insulation around an electrical wire. The myelin does not conduct the signal, it protects the conductor. It keeps the electrical impulse moving cleanly and quickly from the nerve ending back to the brain. Without intact myelin, the signal degrades, it slows, it distorts, it arrives late, garbled, or not at all. That is what numbness is, not the absence of nerve, the absence of clean signal. The myelin is thinning or breaking down, and the impulse that should tell your brain exactly what your toes are feeling is getting lost somewhere along the wire. Now, what builds and maintains myelin? There are several nutrients involved, but the one that sits at the center of the process, the one without which myelin cannot be properly synthesized or repaired, is vitamin B12. Research has consistently established that B12 is essential for the production of myelin. Not helpful, essential. B12 deficiency does not just slow myelin repair. It allows myelin to break down faster than the body can rebuild it. And the symptoms of that breakdown show up first in the longest nerves, the ones that have the most myelin to maintain, which is exactly why peripheral neuropathy from B12 deficiency starts in the feet and works upward. The toes first, then the sole, then the ankle, then the calf. The geometry of the symptom maps directly to the biology. Now here is where blood sugar enters the picture. When glucose runs chronically elevated, even moderately elevated, even the range your doctor is watching but not yet treating aggressively, it creates a biochemical environment that is hostile to B12 absorption. Research has established that chronic hyperglycemia damages the cells lining the small intestine that are responsible for absorbing B12 through a specialized protein called intrinsic factor. Less intrinsic factor means less B12 absorbed from every meal, regardless of how much B12 the food contains. And there is a second drain. For the many people over 65 who are managing blood sugar with metformin, the most prescribed diabetes medication in the world, taken by over 150 million people, research has established that metformin interferes with B12 absorption in the terminal ileum. A systematic review found that B12 deficiency rates in long-term metformin users range from 4% to over 40%, depending on dose and duration. The longer the use, the higher the risk. I'm not telling you to stop metformin. Metformin has decades of research behind it and meaningful clinical benefit. What I am telling you is that the medication your doctor prescribed to protect your blood sugar may be silently drawing down the nutrient your nerve tissue needs most. And almost no one at the pharmacy counter has 90 seconds to explain this. Not because they do not care, because they have 30 patients behind you and a system that was not built to cover this. So the B12 drains, the myelin thins, the signal slows, and the first place you feel it is the toes of your left foot, pressing against the floor in the morning, sending back something that feels like nothing. Now I want to tell you about a man, 71 years old, retired mail carrier from outside Columbus, 40 years of walking routes, the kind of man who knew his body from the feet up. He had been on metformin for 9 years. His blood sugar was managed, his doctor was satisfied. But for the past 2 years, his toes had been going numb during his morning walk. Not painful, just absent. He would look down to confirm his feet were still there. His B12 had never been tested, not once in 9 years of metformin use. When he finally had it checked, he had to ask specifically because B12 is not part of a standard metabolic panel. It came back at 178. The lab reference range listed 200 as the lower boundary of normal. His doctor had been looking at his A1C for 9 years and had never looked at this number. He added eggs every morning, 2 whole eggs, sometimes 3. He added sardines twice a week. He added Greek yogurt daily. Within 3 months, he came back and told me the morning walks felt different. The toes were present again. I'm not telling you his B12 number changed in a way I can show you. I'm telling you what he said about his feet. Let me be specific about the foods. Because B12 is unusual among vitamins, it is found almost exclusively in animal-sourced foods, and the amounts vary significantly between sources. Eggs. 2 whole eggs provide approximately 1.5 micrograms of B12. The daily requirement for adults over 50 is 2.4 micrograms, and many researchers working in this area suggest that older adults with absorption issues need meaningfully more than that. Eggs are not a complete solution on their own, but they are the most reliable daily B12 delivery system available. They require no planning, they are inexpensive at any grocery store, and the yolk, the part many people discard, is where most of the B12 lives. Do not eat only egg whites. The yolk is the point. Sardines. 1 can of sardines contains approximately 8 micrograms of B12, 3 times the daily requirement in a single serving. This is not a minor food. This is one of the most concentrated B12 sources that exists, available at Walmart for under $1 a can. Twice a week, sardines cover most of what eggs leave behind. The omega-3 fatty acids in sardines carry an additional benefit for nerve tissue. Research has linked EPA and DHA to myelin support and to reduction of the inflammatory environment that accelerates nerve damage. The B12 and the omega-3 are working on the same structure through 2 different mechanisms. Greek yogurt. A cup of full-fat Greek yogurt provides approximately 1.3 micrograms of B12, along with calcium, probiotics that support the gut lining involved in B12 absorption, and casein protein that releases amino acids slowly overnight, the same overnight window when nerve tissue does its most important repair work. The probiotic element is not incidental. Research has suggested that gut microbiome disruption, common in people who have been on metformin long-term, impairs the intestinal environment that B12 absorption depends on. The yogurt is supporting the absorption pathway while delivering the nutrient. Eggs in the morning, Greek yogurt in the afternoon or before bed, sardines twice a week. These 3 foods together, eaten consistently, deliver B12 in amounts that begin to address the deficit. Not immediately. B12 repletion is a process that takes weeks to months because the body stores and deploys it slowly. But consistently, over time, the myelin has what it needs to repair. There are 2 practices that compound the effect. The first is asking your doctor to test your B12 level. Specifically, request a serum B12 test if you've been on metformin for more than 2 years, or if you've had elevated blood sugar for more than 3 years, or if you're experiencing any numbness, tingling, or burning in your feet regardless of cause. The standard reference range may show you as normal even when your functional B12 is insufficient for nerve tissue. because serum B12 measures what is circulating, not what is reaching the nerve. If your level comes back below 400, the conversation with your doctor becomes more specific. But you cannot have that conversation if the test was never run. The second is the 10-minute walk after meals. The mechanism here connects back to the absorption story. Post-meal movement activates GLUT4 in your muscle cells, pulls glucose out of the bloodstream, and reduces the post-meal glucose spike that creates the hostile intestinal environment that impairs B12 absorption. Less glucose flooding the small intestine after every meal means better conditions for the intrinsic factor system to do its job. The walk is not just clearing blood sugar, it is protecting the absorption pathway that delivers B12 to the nerve tissue that needs it. Sardines and eggs for the B12, Greek yogurt for the gut environment, post-meal walk to protect absorption. 3 things. 1 outcome for the nerves in your feet. If your feet burn at night, or go numb, or feel cold no matter how many socks you wear, please don't ignore it. I almost did, and I'm 80 years old. For years I told myself it was just age, the tingling, the heaviness in my legs climbing the stairs. But it wasn't age. It was my blood sugar quietly damaging the nerves and the circulation in my legs, and almost nobody warned me in time. If you let it keep going, those little signals turn into something you can't undo. I wasn't willing to lose my feet or my independence. So I started doing one thing every single day to help support healthy blood sugar and protect my legs. I'll show you exactly what in this video. And if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. B12 foods address the myelin directly, but consistency is not enough on its own. The delivery matters as much as the nutrient, and there are 2 practices that compound the effect significantly. The first is asking your doctor to test your B12 level. Specifically, request a serum B12 test if you've been on metformin for more than 2 years, or if you've had elevated blood sugar for more than 3 years, or if you're experiencing any numbness, tingling, or burning in your feet, regardless of cause. The standard reference range may show you as normal even when your functional B12 is insufficient for nerve tissue. If your level comes back below 400, the conversation with your doctor becomes more specific. But you cannot have that conversation if the test was never run. The second is the 10-minute walk after meals. The mechanism here connects directly back to the absorption story. Post-meal movement activates GLUT4 in your muscle cells, pulls glucose out of the bloodstream, and reduces the post-meal glucose spike that creates the hostile intestinal environment that impairs B12 absorption. Less glucose flooding the small intestine after every meal means better conditions for the intrinsic factor system to do its job. The walk is not just clearing blood sugar, it is protecting the absorption pathway that delivers B12 to the nerve tissue that needs it. Sardines and eggs for the B12, Greek yogurt for the gut environment and overnight nerve repair, post-meal walk to protect the absorption pathway. 3 things working on the same structure through different biological entry points. I want to tell you about a man, 71 years old, retired mail carrier from outside Columbus. 40 years of walking routes. The kind of man who knew his body from the feet up. He had been on metformin for 9 years. His blood sugar was managed. His doctor was satisfied. But for the past 2 years, his toes had been going numb during his morning walk. Not painful, just absent. He would look down to confirm his feet were still there. His B12 had never been tested, not once in 9 years of metformin use. When he finally had it checked, he had to ask specifically because B12 is not part of a standard metabolic panel. It came back at 178. The lab reference range listed 200 as the lower boundary of normal. His doctor had been looking at his A1C for 9 years and had never looked at this number. He added eggs every morning, sardines twice a week, Greek yogurt daily. He started the 10-minute walk after each meal. Within 3 months, he came back and told me the morning walks felt different. The toes were present again. I'm not telling you his B12 number changed in a way I can show you. I'm telling you what he said about his feet. The feet are the furthest thing from the heart. The signals from the feet travel the longest distance to reach the brain. The blood supply to the feet runs through the smallest vessels. The nerves in the feet carry the most myelin to maintain. Everything about the foot makes it the last place the body can afford to prioritize when resources are scarce. When B12 is low, the feet feel it first. When the myelin starts to thin, the feet feel it first. The feet are not where the problem lives. The feet are where the problem announces itself after years of building quietly somewhere upstream. That numbness in your toes is not your toes failing, it is your toes reporting. They are the most honest part of your body because they have no way to compensate. They cannot borrow from somewhere else. They cannot work around a shortage. They just go quiet. The people who are still walking well at my age, still feeling the ground under their feet, still trusting their legs to catch them, did not get lucky. They paid attention to the early quiet. They gave the nerve what it was asking for before the quiet became permanent. That is still possible for you. The myelin can be supported. The signal can be clearer. The toes can come back. Not with certainty, not with guarantees, not overnight. But the biology supports it, and the foods that support the biology cost less than $20 a month. If you made it this far, you already understand more about your own legs than most people your age ever will. That matters. You know now that the burning, the numbness, the cold feet, they trace back to one thing: blood sugar slowly working against your nerves and circulation. And you know the goal isn't a miracle. It's protecting your ability to stand, to walk, to stay independent. That's why, alongside everything I showed you today, I use a simple daily support to help keep my blood sugar in a healthy range, so my legs keep carrying me where I want to go. I put the free presentation in the description below. Go watch it. And as always, keep working with your doctor. This supports your routine. It doesn't replace it. Before you go, everything I have shared today reflects what I have learned following this science closely for decades and paying attention to what my own body has shown me. It is not medical advice. If you are managing blood sugar or neuropathy with medication, talk to your doctor before making changes. The foods I described are not treatments. They work alongside your medical care, not instead of it. One specific thing to bring to your next appointment. Ask your doctor to check your serum B12 level. If you have been on metformin for more than 2 years, this is not optional information. It is foundational. Not knowing it, when you are managing blood sugar with medication that is documented to reduce B12 absorption, is a gap worth closing. 2 things I want to know from you before you close this video. First, have you ever had your B12 tested? Yes or no? Second, where is the numbness? Toes, sole, heel, full foot, one side or both? Drop it in the comments. Start with eggs tomorrow morning. 2 whole eggs every morning. That is the beginning. It is not the whole answer, but it is the first daily step in the right direction. Your nerves are not done. Give them what they have been missing.